definitions. Like if you travel around the country, you might see slight differences. What we're doing today is we're making sure we're all speaking the same language when we're talking to each other and when we're talking to you. So they're a little flexible, like I said. In your own lexicon, once you're sorting through this in your head, next week, feel free to change how you categorize things. Like I said, we're just trying to get a common language. So, fakes are sword movements that connect but are expected to be blocked in order to either move your opponent to a desired spot or draw out a desired response. So, for example, Chase, grab a stick. I throw this shot right here. I expect Chase to block it, and I want Jace to throw at me someplace, right? So that was a fake. I threw a shot that I knew he was gonna block to try to generate a predictable response from him. A feint, body movements or sword movements that do not connect to convince your opponent to move themselves or their equipment to a predictable spot or away from a desired target. So if I step out here, don't connect, use body and sword movement to convince Jace to move his equipment to a spot that I want it to be in. That's a feint. And feints are known openings or intentional mistakes in movement or positioning to lure an opponent to throwing a specific shot or to a specific target. So if we're using the bait guard that we learned yesterday, I'm generating predictable attack from Jace. All right, so with those definitions, we're gonna start talking about ways to generate fakes, ways to generate that motion or that movement. Get my gloves on so I don't smash my fingers. All right. So the first part, or let's talk about feints first, because that's the thing that everyone has the most questions about. And fakes, we talk about a lot elsewhere. So we'll focus more on feints because I think I heard that a lot more throughout the introductions. So the easiest feint in the world is sword movement, right? Because you don't have to move your body. All it takes is just a little bit of arm movement. The most important part about that feint is to be threatening. If it is not threatening, you're generating momentum in your equipment and gaining nothing from your opponent. So using Jace again, if I feint towards a thing that's not open, for example, right now he's got a really good outside lane. Actually, let's switch hands so everybody can see. So he's got a really strong outside lane guard, right? No matter what I do, I can't get my stick to his arm. So if I feint to the outside lane, Jace doesn't have to move at all to stop whatever I'm showing, right? So this isn't a real threat. So in order for me to effectively feint to his outside lane, I need to make sure there's a real threat there. So we add some body movement. In fact, if your opponent is good enough, sometimes all you need is a little bit of body movement. So Jason's a warlord, so he knows what he's doing. So if I move a little bit, so I generated movement from his hand, because he knows that if I step here, if he leaves his hand in place, I now have access to his outside lane, right? I can get there. So a little bit of body movement forces a little bit of hand movement from Jace, and because I've got momentum in a direction I want it, it opens his inside lane a little more, and I might even be able to get the back body. So by moving to the outside lane, I forced movement out of Jace and opened shots elsewhere. Everybody kind of tracking that? Questions so far? Outstanding. All right, so most important thing is a real threat. The second principle is if your opponent does not respond to that real threat, just hit them. So if I step out, generate that threat, Jace doesn't move, rather than trying to complete the feint just for the sake of completing the feint, just hit him. Because now Jace knows that threat is real. So next fight, Jace knows that if I step out here and he doesn't move, he loses his arm. So it forces the movement. This is also where fakes come in. Even though he's very good, I know he's gonna block it. If I step out and throw the shot, now he knows it's a real threat. So next fight, or even next pass, I don't have to complete the shot. I can spend a little less effort, a little less motion, and still achieve the same result because he knows it's real and he knows it's a real threat. So like you were asking about earlier, when you're underselling to a newer fighter, show them the real shot. Just make sure you do it safely. For example, if I step out and I throw a really wide shot and Jace blocks it, I just sacrificed everything to show him a threat. But what he learned instead is that he's got a really good block strike and can kill me for it. So my goal is to show him a threat safely. All right. I'm starting to blank a little bit.
Right. Yeah, so the three principles I like to think about it as, man.
Yeah, please.
So I like to consider it a little way to remember is CPR, right? If you're saving somebody's life. In this case, we're using it to kill somebody. C, context. have I hit them before with it, right? Jace doesn't need to react if I haven't hit him with it yet. 2, position. Am I in a spot where I could potentially hit him to begin with, right? So if we notice when Aurelius was doing this example, not only did he swing a sword out here, but he put his foot outside of his opponent's foot. So effectively, if we're talking about this like a chess match, I have his arm in check here. He has to respond to this because I'm in a position to do so. Lastly is range. So if I'm far away, there's literally no amount of faking you can do to get a reaction out of him. However, inversely, even if we're talking about sword and board, at this range, there's so many things in range that he has to react even to the slightest motion, right? So when we're troubleshooting our fakes, feints, and baits, think about these 3 components as tools to troubleshoot this, okay? Have I built the context? Am I in the right position? Am I in the right range? Question?
And context would include if other people have hit them with the shot before.
100%. Yeah, we're gonna get to that in the notes. Sorry, here in a second. Okay, no worries. But yeah, so context can be something as simple as I've hit them with it, but use your local meta as an advantage, right? And for example, me personally, if I'm fighting a Bell Dag fighter, I know that in their game, a huge meta is a dark side. So I can incorporate dark side into my game, and it's not necessarily that it's gonna for sure work, but I can start making a plan based off of the context that maybe other people have put, right? Maybe everybody in your kingdom has a sick high cross, so you know that you can easily high cross and then maybe go into a board side shoulder after.
Hey. Yeah. All right. I have now recovered my place. I just recovered from COVID like Tuesday, so please bear with me a little bit. So the fog comes and goes. Okay, so building off of that, actually, that was a really good intro to what I was going to talk about. Is breakpoints. So like we talked about earlier, a feint must be threatening, right? So again, no threat, no reaction, threat, reaction. How much do you commit to that feint before, and have it still be effective? So to me, there's 2 breakpoints. I'm also old and broken. Some of you who are younger might have multiple breakpoints for different shots that you can go to, but for me, there's 2. The first breakpoint is when I get locked into a lane. I can start the shot, and from about this point, I can execute the shot to about here and still throw to any target on my opponent. Once I get past this point, now I'm locked into the lane that I'm attacking. So once I'm about here, and my rule of thumb is generally once my tip crosses my opponent's equipment. Once the tip crosses their equipment, then I'm locked into the lane that I'm attacking. So at that point, I have a choice which quadrant in that lane to attack. And yeah.
When you say your tip crosses their equipment, are you talking about like from side to side like this, or more of like range-wise?
Range-wise, thank you. Very good question. So as I'm attacking Jace, once my tip is past his sword, I'm now locked into the outside lane because my sword is on the outside lane currently, and I've got forward momentum, tips past his, now I have to throw outside lane. From here, if Jace has effectively blocked my shot, I can choose to either take a risk and try to throw low quadrant because his sword's in high quadrant, or I can choose to turn this into a fake, smack his hand, and try to generate a response from it. Before that, I have the option to transition to inside lane and do something else. You can also, how do I want to phrase this? You can transition multiple times before you hit that first breakpoint, and you can do a little bit of back and forth, but generally speaking, once you back up, you kind of lose your momentum and are starting a new shot. So, for example, if I start to the outside, transition to the inside, and if Jace throws a panic block, now I can transition one more time to the outside. Especially if he pulls his sword point back, I'm still able to transition again, but once my point is past his equipment, I'm pretty well locked into that lane. Now I have a choice to take the risk and try to go for it, or do I throw a safe shot and try to get a good return from it? So, yeah, those are the way you find the breakpoints is on a pel. So get set up in front of a pel and pick a shot, throw the shot, get comfy, and then figure out how far into that shot you can get and still comfortably get to another shot. Again, some of you guys are a lot younger than me, so maybe you'll be able to have multiple breakpoints, like get a little further and you can still do high quadrant. Maybe you just can't get to the low quadrant shot, but I'm old and I can't do that. One piece of advice for doing that and workshopping that, get a heavy stick, because especially with a little 6-ounce bat, you can readily get to a secondary location from a whole lot further than you think you can by putting a lot of extra force and repetitive motion damage into your joints. So when you're in the lab, I think of it as being in the lab, I use an SCA stick to workshop any new shot or to identify those break points for myself. That way I know I'm not hurting myself later on, which is how I've been able to keep doing this for 23 years. All right, any questions so far? Anything not clear? All right, so fakes. Has everybody taken some kind of single sword class before? Thumbs up. Anybody not done it?
Technically, no.
All right. Not necessarily today, but you generally know block strike.
Oh.
So fakes, it's essentially the block strike fight. We'll gloss over that because we have limited time and we've got a lot of stuff we want to cover. So you're trying to generate a predictable return. For example, if I want to hit Jace on the outside lane, I might throw an outside lane shot that I know he's going to block to try and draw him into throwing an inside lane shot. And from here, his original guard covered the outside, right? And now his outside is not covered anymore. I have access to it. It's not great access, but it's a lot more than I had before. So now I can throw a little deeper and maybe get it. So that's the general theory of the fake. That also brings us to baits. From my original guard, does he have really good access to my inside lane?
Not really.
Not great, but
I do
it's
now.
there. But as soon as I come out from this and start throwing a shot, it's a little juicier, right? I seasoned that steak just a little bit, so maybe he actually wants to get it. So from here, now it looks better, but I'm expecting it, so I have a better shot at blocking it. The best way I've found to bait, if you're baiting a brand spanking new fighter, a lot of times you can just hold bait guard and they'll actually go for it. Downside is if you're fighting Warlord McFlurry who's deciding to slum it like my brother, he'll just hit you for doing this. You're also giving away the match because you're giving your opponent a lot of information by hanging out in bait guard. You're showing them, I want you to swing high. My plan is for you to swing high, which lets you, like if I'm fighting Warlord Ender over here, if I just hang out in bait guard, he can do a lot of nasty stuff like show me that high shot and then do anything else when I snap to block it right. So I gave away my whole plan to him. So I don't like hanging out in bait guard. I like using bait guard as a transitional position during a fight. So for example, if we're fighting for real, like I'll do that little dance and then I might show him that exactly like that. Like a transition through bait guard, he bit, I was able to block and return, and I don't think I got my return, but that's either way.
It clipped it on him.
Yeah. Either way, I got what I wanted, which was he threw to the bait guard because it looked like a mistake in the midst of the exchange.
Using a lot of motion to make it seem like it's an accident.
Yeah, 100%. The most effective bait reads to your opponent like an accident that you made during the fight. So, if you're, do you have any good examples of that one? Because I'm blanking again. Good old COVID fog.
Of what?
Baits in the middle of a fight. Like,
For me, I like to use position. So, like, if I'm fighting sword and board, right? I'm not sure if any of y'all took my footwork class yesterday, but if I'm maybe, I might get into an off-center position where Aurelius is gonna fake a sword side hip shot. So what I'll do is I'll switch my foot back to do a proper defense and take away this quadrant from him. But in doing so, I'm actively baiting my shoulder. So I might lower my shield just a pinch. And so this is using active movement and incorporating lead switching into baiting this quadrant.
yeah, that looks really juicy to me, right? Like
Right.
knowing that you're doing it is still juicy.
Yeah, but it just seems like a normal potential defense that I'm just using as a trap for my opponent.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So try to think along those lines. How can I show my opponent a mistake during this exchange that's readily covered? For example, go ahead and pick up the shield again, please. I won't bother with mine. So he showed me a dark side. I go for it, and he shows me that bait. How easy is it for you to cover that shoulder again?
Fairly easy.
It's like how much motion does it take for you to get my stick off of you?
Especially with the dome, not as much. However, especially if I'm using my feet to reposition, if I just shotgun my shield back, then obviously I'm exposing something else. So rather than bringing my gear back to me, what I'm going to do is step into it. Right now I was originally in this position. Now I'm here. I have a good block and another shot opportunity. Okay.
So show your opponent a mistake, but make sure that mistake is something you can readily cover.
Knowing your openings before you actually throw it. Right? I know that shoulder's going to be open. That's part of the plan is for Aurelius to potentially bite on it.
So in tournament fighting, small baits and gradually make them bigger until you get a good bite. In fighting to learn, feel free to open it wide just to see what happens. Like if I'm fighting ender for the first time and there's nothing riding on it, especially sword and board because I'm awful at sword and board, I'm gonna show him all kinds of openings just to see what he does to me. Like I might start here just like, okay, how do you attack my sword side? Like you're gonna do it because it's wide.
So
what are you gonna do to me?
So I guess let me say what I'm thinking. All right. So obviously, with how low this guard is, this seems very obvious that he's trying to bait me, right? So option one is I can take it. Option two is I can make him think I'm taking it, right? So something I could do is maybe a slight lateral, right? Position. Make it like so that rather than me just throwing a straight shot where he can easily block it and deflect it, well, from this position, now he has to commit way further out, right? So an option I can do is that little lateral, little pump, take a slot, right? That's a way of troubleshooting it, but knowing that that's exactly what he wants, right? I'm thinking, what does Aurelius want here, not what does Ender want here?
Yeah, 100%. That should also be part of your loop anytime you're trying to establish or anticipate what your opponent is doing. If I'm fighting Ender in a tournament, anytime I see a mistake, I'm trying to make a snap decision. Is this a mistake or is this a bait?
Yep.
Did he screw up or is this what he wants me to do?
Right.
So a lot of times I won't fight even on real mistakes just because I'm a very cautious fighter because I'm old.
Or you throw fakes that you don't plan on following up on just to see what their reactions are.
Oh yeah, 100%.
We're checking, right? So in the same example, you might be here, and maybe I don't have an offensive plan, but go ahead and go into that bait again. So, but something I might do is, so obviously we don't start fights in mid-range, right? So something I might do is, right? So I'm gonna enter range in a range where I know it could potentially be a threat. Throw a little pump, see what Aurelius wants to do. Very clearly, he responded by doing a standard parry, right? So now I know if he gives me that opportunity again, more than likely he's going to react identically. Now I can make a plan based off of that reaction in the future.
More advanced principle, try to vary up your responses at least a little bit. For example, I know once I see that feint and once I see him do that, the next time he comes in, I might take that step instead.
For sure.
Especially if he's starting to actually execute the plan, planning on me just parrying.
Yeah.
Now suddenly my feet are in a different spot and I've got something juicier. So think about as you're working through your fakes, feints, and baits and your openers to fights, think about changing your response deliberately to do something slightly different. Because if you fight the same fight 3 times, it might work the first time, it may or may not work the second, probably won't work the third.
If your opponent's really good at pattern recognition, you're just going to get caught out and killed.
All right. Does anybody have any questions so far?
That's something I wanted to add, if that's okay.
Yeah, please do.
So this might sound kind of obvious, but anything relating to like a fake is only going to be threatening if you can make it threatening. So as an example, if I'm fighting and I've got like hypothetically I've got like 2 shots, I can like throw directly outside or I can throw like straight across inside. I got these 2 shots, right? If I want to get him to move in any way, I need to have in my combat vocabulary the ability to sell other shots. This means pelling those shots at home. So if this is all I have and this is all that you're seeing and you fought me enough, then you know that if I even pretend to throw anything else, you're gonna see the tells that this isn't threatening. Is that threatening?
Not particularly.
Right?
It looks like you're just pushing your sword across rather than
Exactly.
throwing a
It
shot.
isn't, it's got to look like a shot. You've got to have the mechanics of it. You've got to throw it at people, not even necessarily land it, but have it like throw it so that you've got it in your body, and then figure it out at home or at fighter practice or at park how to make that threatening. And then from there, you could incorporate it into your fix. Does that make sense?
I really like that. It's a different way to look at what I was talking about earlier with the break points. In order to reach a break point, you have to have actually started a real shot. So yeah, another way to look at it. Same. Very good. Thank you. All right. So what I want to do next is workshop a couple of openers. So everybody partner up. Ideally, somebody you don't know, and we'll start workshopping an opener, one for each. One.
Oh, are you the rogue that plays RuneScape?
How am I doing?
Oh, yeah, Mac was telling me.
You're doing
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Watch out, they're going to rob you for your account.
Okay.
Him? Fake?
Yeah, they're going to rob you.
So we got a little ahead of ourselves and got to the drill because I saw folks glazing over. It's like, all right, time to move. We're early in the morning, don't want folks falling asleep. So the thing I wanted to say before the drill, but I stand by my decision. What we're trying to do here, we're not doing a shot creation class. What we're trying to do is build a framework to generate openings on your opponent. So the goal here wasn't to figure out the seven-tailed dragon or the threefold path or anything like that. The goal is to figure out, if I want to hit the inside of my opponent's forearm, how can I generate that opening? What steps and movements can I make that make that shot available and safe? So we talked about that a little bit as I was going around, but I just wanted to make sure everybody had heard that in those words. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is how to defend against fakes, feints, and baits. I swear I speak. All right, so if Jace is trying to fake me out or trying to hit me someplace, generally speaking, unless you're the fastest dude in the West, you have one good block and one panic block with your hand, right? So if Jace shows me a shot to the outside lane, if I've got a neutral guard, just show me the shot, don't.
Oh, sure.
So I've got a good block to the outside, right? So go ahead and show me the shot. So I've got a good block here. If that turns out to be a lie and Jace throws to the inside, I had the opportunity to throw a panic block where, in order to generate enough speed to get there in time, since Jace is driving the fight and I'm reacting, first off I have to recognize what Jace is doing and then react to it, which means I'm already behind the curve. So in order to get there quickly, I have to fling my hand as fast as I can. So instead of a solid good block, now it's a panic block clear over here. So it turns out that's a lie too. Now I'm in a really bad spot, right? So what I like to do is first block the first intent with my feet. So if Jace shows me an outside lane shot, I'm going to step in such a way where I need almost no hand motion, or ideally no hand motion, to shut off that shot. So that also generates a little more distance, gives me a little more time to read what's going on. So I can decide, is this a real threat or is it a lie? And it gives Jace a little pause, like, okay, the range is different now. What can I still get from this? All right, so now when that turns out to be a lie, because now it has to be a lie because there's no threat there anymore, right? Now go ahead and move to the next. Now I can do my good block to the inside, right? And if that turns out to be a lie as well, now I still have my panic block intact. And if Jace is just chasing me and flurrying, now we're backing off in a weird spot. If you watch warlords fight, very rarely does that happen unless they know each other really well. So if Ender and I are fighting, we don't know each other well. The fight's probably over in about 3 shots, right? Maybe 5 if we're. Let's do one real quick. Just yeah, like there. It was over in 2 shots, right? Faked me out nicely. I didn't back up enough, and he landed.
What did I do there?
CPI.
Yeah, for sure, right? So let's use CPR. What did I do? So I had an outside threat. I took a step outside of position, made him think something was coming here. I did a double fake, right?
Mm-hmm.
So cool. He had to react to this. Then I did a little stab fake. So now what I'm doing here is almost like a hammer chop, where you keep your wrist rigid the whole time. Instead, I'm using this stab as a follow through, keeping a rigid wrist, taking another step, and having outside control, following up on the shoulder, right? When it comes to defense, like Aurelius was saying, we still use CPR to figure out how we defend ourselves, except for we just kind of forget about the C. So P, position. If Aurelius goes outside on us to make us feel threatened, we have to make sure that we counteract that. So footwork wise, he goes outside, he goes towards his left, I need to go towards my left, and all of a sudden, nothing happened, right? We netted neutral. I don't have to feel as threatened by it because I made the position moot, right? Similarly, he's closing distance on me, he's changing the range, right? The R in CPR. I counteract that range by also changing range, right? He's banking on me not moving so he can smoke maybe my hip, right? Well, that shot can only happen at a certain range. If I change the range, holy shit, I'm not dead. Maybe I have a free shot on his arm, right? So defense is still just as valuable using those same tools.
Thank you. Perfect. That's exactly what I was hoping to see. All right, so I want to do the drill again with different partners. And this time, as the defender, you're going to be thinking about, how do I safely defend myself from my opponent's open? So think about, how do I step to stop what my opponent is doing? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right, new partners.
Thank you. Now we can match.
All right.
Now we can match. We're brothers. What is this class? Feints. Feints.
I was talking to Alex. Pretty much our syllabus was the same as pretty much.
I haven't seen since you started in a class.
Okay, so what we've covered up to this point has been very single sword centric because that's what I do very well. Very roguey style, so it's a lot of position and a lot of tip work with feints, baits, and baits, right?
We kind of like. I didn't.
What we're going to do next, we've got two board experts, and I'm going to turn the floor over to them to talk about different feinting techniques with things that are a little, basically not single sword centric. So, Andrew, you ready?
Oh yeah. Awesome. So real quick, I just want to establish what tools we have at our disposal, to get people to react. So I guess before we grab the shield, I'll just define what these are. So we want to tailor our fakes and feints and baits towards our opponent, right? Some people need a little bit more stimulus, some people need less, right? Especially like newer fighters, you know, have to be real drastic. Oh, look, I'm gonna hit you in the shoulder, and then you drop it, right? Higher level fighters, or excuse me, like mid-level fighters, they normally require little motions, right? Like a quick little tip fake, and you can get them to react. Once you get towards the higher level, it actually is almost like a bell curve. It drops back down. I need to see a level of commitment, that break point that Aurelius was mentioning, right? High level or low level, I might have to do something like this to get a low level fighter to react, right? Oh my goodness, right? And then it'll open up. Mid level, you know, a little fake. Yeah, it's just, oh, it could be so fast, it's gonna smoke me. I gotta react, right? Aurelius, though, if I don't start throwing, right? If you notice, I cocked up and I got into a good position, but he didn't react until I actually started projecting, right? He needs to see a little bit level of commitment. So tailor your fakes towards your opponents. Now, what are the tools that we have? So some people are looking at the tips of your sword, okay? Especially in single sword, it's the thing that they feel like they get hit most by. So something I could do, just something as simple as like a little rattle, boom, right? Oh, sorry. Overreact a little bit more. So boom, right? So now this is a little tip fake, right? Because he's focusing here, that can go for an inside arm. Another thing, so we'll work our way down the sword to the hand. Something that you can do is a little hand fake. So I pump my hand over, then it lets me drop it, right? Lastly, it works more against higher level fighters, but elbow fakes. So if we go back to sword and board, actually, I'm not gonna grab it just so the camera can see it. Let's switch. Oh, sure. So, where some people throw a sword side hit by just dropping the tip of their sword, at the higher level, we're trying to incorporate mechanics of position, right? So, if I'm here in a guard, something I might do is drop my elbow, and this is going to be a tell that I'm about to go for this hip. Right, exactly. Does that make sense? So tailor your fakes towards your opponent, okay? If they react to the tip, use the tip. Now, what am I doing? I'm going to stay at a range where I'm going to be safe. However, I can still incorporate what I need to. So I'm going to start from top and work my way down. So I'm going to start tip. Okay. Aurelius didn't react to the tip. All right, so no matter how much I rattle here, it's not gonna work. All right, let me work my way down. All right, so maybe I might try and fake a hip shot. All right, yeah, he did react to that, right? Just a little pump. If you notice, this is gonna be, the motions aren't super drastic. I don't have to drop my hand all the way towards my other hip, right? It's not a 1.5 or 2 feet. This is a game of maybe a fist distance from my original position, right? Boom, boom. Right? If I were facing y'all, if I was lined up, boom, right? Boom, boom, right? So tailor your fakes towards your opponents. Now,
one other thing I want to add to that is go ahead and actually throw the shot, hit me in the hip. Notice that hand movement he was talking about is the lead into the shot. When he throws the real shot, he goes through all of those motions. So if I don't react, he can just hit me. If I do react, now it's an effective fake and it does something else, or an effective feint, excuse me.
Now real quick, sword and board. All these principles just as applicable, right? Now, build a game off of whatever you're already doing. So personally, I have this little combination that I like for a sword side hit. What it is the chop, which is a bait for the arm. So I'm already anticipating this. I'm going to sweep my hand up as I take a lateral, so I'm getting my position, right? Now I have a really good angle. Let's switch again. Sorry. So opener, bait, position, right? I have a pretty sweet shot here. Mechanically, it doesn't take a lot to have to hit it. It's very reliable. Now, assuming I've built the context that I've hit this person, right? All of a sudden things start to open up. So what can I do? Boom, here, I can, from this point, flip it, right? If after doing this enough times, my opponent might start to drift their gear, I just pump, shoulder, right? Things are gonna start opening up, but I'm using the same exact things as before. Am I in range, right? So obviously I did the context, I've hit them, right? Am I in the proper range? This isn't gonna work from here. I'm gonna execute an improper one, okay? So I'm here, boom, you cross, don't move. In fact, get your gear out of the way. I'm not in range. Aurelius not only can take a step here, but just doesn't even have to react. He doesn't have to respect it because he understands his range, my range, he can still move, right? So range, I gotta get a little bit closer. I know this might feel a little uncomfortable. Our goal is not to hinge and reach. Keep good posture, step a little bit closer, right? It's gonna be uncomfortable. Lastly, position, right? So rather than execute the same shot from neutral, right? Tighten up the guard a little bit. Yeah. So if I'm here, I do the same combination, right? I barely hit it. If Aurelius's guard is a little bit more over, it's blocked all day, right? I started center line. This isn't gonna work super effective. I'm gonna cheat by starting just a pinch off center. Didn't change the range. I changed the position of my starting point, right? Executing the same maneuver. Completely different, night and day, right? Awesome. Same thing happens with like a board side shoulder, right? If I'm here, I can get, if I start center line, Aurelius is blocking his shoulder very well here and likely doesn't have to react. However, also my range is a little bit too far. Since he's standing sort of forward, I have to acknowledge the fact that I might have to step a little bit closer to make that target feel threatened. So change the range for the target you're trying to threaten. Position, right? This shoulder is 100% open from here. Aurelius has to react, right? Do we agree?
Yes.
Y'all live over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
All right.
let's see it from
So-
this
I'll
side.
do that one more time so they can see it.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
So right now I'm on center line. I'm gonna start a little bit off center. Take my step. If you can see, I really don't have to do much. Right?
How
It's
far
just
did
kind
you
of already
step?
there. Huh?
How many inches did you step? About
Like 3.
2 inches and then 2 inches?
Yeah, I mean, I started
Maybe
off.
6, 8 total.
I started off maybe 2-3 inches, and then when I took my step, it was very shallow. Right? I don't have to do something like this to make him feel threatened. Right? I could just be here. Just the fact that I know I can hit it and that it's in range is enough. So cool, I can hit it. He has to react. Yeah, he gets a reaction, right? Or maybe he even pivots or something. But this starts opening up over here, right? What am I doing? He pivots, he turns. So what am I gonna do? Reposition again. Right? His whole other side opens up. So chaining these steps, these fakes, using these tools, right? We'll go back to what we were talking about a second ago of the components. Maybe I get here and I just do a little tip rattle, right? Okay, Aurelius didn't react. Maybe I need to get my hand going. Yeah, you see that? Not a lot of motion. Boom. 6 inches. Bam. It opens up. Right? That's the reason why like money shots work, is because you're under the assumption that they respected the initial to begin with, right? You got in a spot where they had to react, over here it opens up. If I tried to do a money shot from here, super out of range, he doesn't have to react, he doesn't have to respect it, super easy block. Right? So yeah, question?
Yeah. So when you're incorporating the footwork as part of the face and the base,
Yeah.
Obviously in the demos you'll like take a step and then pause and then throw. But in the actual real-time motion step, does the timing of the footwork change depending on what you're throwing, or how do you make that match?
That is a great question. So now,
It can, but usually it's in time with your shot.
Okay.
yeah, so when I'm throwing a shot to begin with, this kind of gets into footwork, but footwork, I like to think about it almost like a stock market in a way. So as I'm taking a step, I'm invested, right? The market's going up in range, right? In influence. So once I land, I'm not gaining anything else. I'm not gaining any more angle. I'm not gaining any more range.
Okay.
So my goal is to get my advantage right here.
Okay.
Right? If I did it here, I'm not in range, right? As it's in the air.
Yeah.
I pulled out early. There was still meat on that bone. You still could, right? Like if we're eating.
Yeah, I get it.
Right? Sorry, I'm too
Stock
sick.
market meat on the bone. Okay.
Right? So if you're in guard, right? If I did it here, I'm early.
Yeah.
I still could have had more range and more angle.
Mm.
Right? However, if I land and then I throw my shot, it gave my opponent opportunity to reposition, right? So our goal is to throw our shot and land it at the same time, accompanied by our foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Similarly, because our shots are supposed to be like that, right, on paper, all the time,
Yeah.
we do the same thing with our fake. So I'm here, a standard board side shoulder, I'm gonna throw it accompanied with that step, right? My goal is to land the shoulder as I'm landing my step. Similarly, my goal is to land the fake
Yeah.
alongside with the step. Right?
Okay.
You see?
Right. Yeah.
Right? And that's when this opens
Right.
up.
Okay. Thank you. Cool.
Yeah, for sure. Great question.
As far as expanding upon that, when you throw off time, usually that takes a lot of context with your opponent, like we were talking about earlier with context.
Yep.
So pretend you got your board up, or pick every board, I guess. Sure. So for example, if I'm fighting with Ender, and I've shown Ender that fake 3 or 4 times, right? Ender knows my timing, right? Ender knows I step here, shot lands about there. So once we've had 5 or 6 fights where I've done that, maybe I step, wait a beat, wait for Ender to recover. Once Ender's recovered, then I throw my shoulder. But I know that that'll work based on context. So I'm not going to do that the first fight, because if I do that the first fight, Ender's not going to know what's coming. Ender's just going to smoke my arm once it comes out. Versus Ender knows this is the timing.
Okay.
I step, wait for Ender to come out, and wait for Ender to recover. Now I throw.
Okay. Cool.
But based on context, you can throw off time.
Okay.
The general case, shot lands in time with your foot lands.
Okay.
What I will say is don't feel like you have to fake. Okay? Your goal here is to drink from the well until it's dry and then start faking. Right? If every single time I take this step and I throw the shoulder, Aurelius doesn't block it, cool. I'm gonna keep throwing it until he figures out he needs to over-exaggerate to block it. Right? Then at that point where he over-exaggerates, now is when I can follow up, execute my fake on the next plan, change it. Right? Yeah, some people, they just go into a fight, maybe they landed it once, and they're like, okay, cool, they must be afraid of it. Or that person sometimes forgets, right? Or maybe it was a fluke. Oh, there's no way that's gonna happen twice, right? Show them that you can land it on demand, and then mess with their expectations. Does that make sense? Head nods? Nice.
That would be part of like training your opponent, right?
Yes,
All right.
100%. Right. Developing that context, right? Did I see a hand over here? No? Sorry. Awesome. That's the gist of what we're talking about in Sword and Board.
You're being
Positions do change, right? When we're talking about where people's guards are. So, currently Aurelius is defense. He leaves a natural little bit of opening up.
You know,
Whether he knows it or not is
second one
up to
today.
him, right?
I
Like,
already
this could
took
be a
that one
passive
off.
bait that we don't know about. But I'm going to observe my opponent. Right? This was naturally open. Maybe a little bit of a shoulder.
It's the
Turning
druid
his
in me.
gear and facing this way. Right? If you look at my defense, my gear, my shield is pointing at his hand. Right? So I'm trying to keep things as tight as I can. He's naturally maybe trying to give himself more attack angles. It could be for many reasons. Right? But establishing these things that we can just off of the visual is going to help us make that plan ahead of time.
Anybody took the reading setups and returns classes, that's a cold read.
Yeah.
So he's reading what my intention is. Based on where I'm setting up, my first step is almost certainly going to be here, to cut off that angle, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, it is a passive bait. If I can get him to throw high or low on my sword side, and I can get that step, now his arm's exposed, and he's wasted his sword on a motion that was never going to land. So I get a free shot. And his arm's out, so maybe I get a free shot at his sword.
Actually, and that brings up a little bit more advanced point. Range, you remember CPR, range? Range doesn't necessarily mean that I need to do all the work, right? So something that might happen here is Aurelius takes this step, and Aurelius is gonna go from long range to medium range. I can anticipate this step happening and bank on throwing a shot for the location he's about to be at, right? I don't have to do as much work here. So if you step back, right? Something I might potentially do, you step forward, right? I might throw for that hip, and if you notice, roughly by the time he landed, I hit him, right? He didn't have any direction that he could change. While this foot was off the ground, he was committed to landing at this point. So I have until he lands before he can reposition again. But notice, I don't do the work here to change the range, he is. Right? This is another potential tool that we have at our disposal. If we're fighting a height disparity opponent, this is a great tool for us to close range at the same time. So if he steps on me, I step alongside, accompanied with his, and now my options have changed, right? From here, if I didn't move at all, maybe I have a flat wrap here that I have to overextend for, but because I accompanied with him, I can anticipate a sky hook, right? Or, my shot options change. But notice that in his step, he's anticipating, right? The reason why this works is because Aurelius in his head, he's thinking about what he's planning on doing when he gets here, and nothing changes, right? When we're throwing a shot, we're like, okay, by the time I get there, they'll be dead. I get to walk back, say hello to the fans, give a little bow, right? So, but yeah, I'm messing with his level of expectation. So maybe he throws a sword side hit, right, as he lands, right? Go ahead and land. So cool. That was his plan to begin with. So when you do the same exact thing, go back. Now I close, right? I suffocated his attack angle. He's compromised his posture because he was expecting me to be a little bit further back. Options are open, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for bringing that up. It led me to
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions?
How would you use the shield for more
11:30.
baits?
Shield for baits. Okay.
Yeah.
Great question.
Because I assume that's one of our other tools. We got the sword, but we can also use the shield.
100%. I'll try and give us 5 more minutes, but I think we're supposed to end this right now.
We're actually
I'm gonna try and
overtime
get this.
already.
I'm gonna try and get this in. So, fakes can be used for a couple of things depending on the gear that you have. Some people are just looking for any sort of motion, right? Maybe not even the sword. So one, we could use it for baits, right? Obviously, there's a passive bait. You can keep your shield low, bait the shoulder, counter, right? That's a fairly common one. We talked about lead switching, right? In my footwork theory class, which is changing which hemisphere you have in front of you. So if I'm here, a bait that I could do is changing my stance, so now I'm baiting the other side, right? Now, if I'm here, oftentimes we need the shot that we're faking to look like the shot that we normally throw. So if, for example, every time I throw a sword side hip, I always maybe table my shield and give myself a little bit more angle. Part of my fake needs to look like this, right? So eventually he starts, maybe the context that he's looking for is in my hand, but the exaggerated motion of my shield. So I could do something like this, step through, go shoulder side. Another option is, some people like to punch their shield out to then go for like a high cross. You can then just, punch that shield out. They react to that high cross. You go for shoulder instead, right? But yes, great question. Those are absolutely tools that you can do for fakes and baits as well.
How do you train that? The way you train that, or at least the way I trained it, is again with a Pel and a mirror behind it. So as I was going through the various shots and what I would do to achieve the angle for that shot, I would watch the person in the mirror and keep track of what equipment was moving and what parts of my body were moving, and figure out which of those can I move as part of a fake without committing to the shot, or a feint, excuse me.
Reviewing video of yourself, right? Looking back on what you're doing in an active situation, right? Because there's an image of what we think we're doing, and then there's what we're actually doing. Right? Can we all agree? Yeah. Like sometimes we throw a spin and we're like, oh, it must have been the coolest thing ever, and it's like, ooh. Right? So it happens. But one, changing how you do it, right? Having variations. Looking back on how you actually do it and trying to replicate that as often as possible. Pelling, right? Getting these reps in as often as we can. Are all tools that we have at our disposal to get better. So,
Thank you.
yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, everyone enjoy the class?
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.